Hello, folks. This is Bob Safale, and I'm very, very excited about tonight's webinar. I think I could tell you one thing. All three subjects we're going to be talking about are eye-popping. So first, I want to make sure you all can hear me. So if you have your little hand, if you look at your screen on the upper right-hand side, you're going to see a little hand. Why don't you hit that little hand so I can see that you can hear me? Why don't you, if everybody could try to do that real quick? Just hit that little hand so I make sure you can hear me. It looks like we're in pretty good shape. Okay, looking good, looking good, looking good. Okay, folks. Well, listen. As I said, I I I I think, in fact, I'm sure that tonight's subject matter is probably the most important announcements I'm going to be making, and the information I'm going to be talking about, because the timing is very important. And once again, I want to thank everybody for attending here. We host these webinars every Thursday night sharp at 8 o'clock. And the purpose of these webinars is really to give you insider information you're not going to get anywhere else, and also cutting edge training. We are going to be having the drawing at the end of this event for 10,000 cloud coins. Boy, you should have seen our winner last week. He was excited. Oh my gosh. So we will have that at the end of the event. And then in tomorrow's newsletter, I will then let you know who won. So that's kind of fun. Now, more than any other time, any other event, I ask you to please write down my email address tonight more than any other time. It's important that you have it, because you're going to want to email me after this event. It's bob@digitalcurrencygrowth.com. That's bob@digitalcurrencygrowth.com. bob@digitalcurrencygrowth.com. Now, I probably more than ever, particularly with the current events happening in the whole crypto space, it's more important than ever for you to understand who you are and where you fit in this crypto world. And I do this by illustrating how many people are involved in it and how many people are not yet involved. And this is very important for you to completely understand. Right now, there are just over 22 million wallets out there as of January 1st, 2008, which means that less than 1% of the world's population that live in fully developed countries, and that's roughly 4 billion people. Less than 1% have wallets. So you are really, 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 really at the front end of this world, this crypto world, and that's important for the two news items I'm going to talk about tonight. This is the famous adoption S curve, and I just want to remind everybody again: the innovators are the people, the first 2.5%. Now, it's important for you are before the early adopters. And the reason why I want you to really get what an innovator is, they are people that take information and do something with it that is life-changing, not only for themselves, but many, many others. So right now, you are the innovators. So it's paramount that you understand this crypto world that is ultimately, it's my prediction, within the next 5 to 10 years, is going to take over a significant portion of the banking world. Okay, that's what you're looking at. Okay, and for those people who said that Amazon wasn't going to be nothing to nobody, I think you could all agree that they're taking over the retail world. When you take a look at what Amazon has done there were a lot of poo-pooers 10 years ago. A lot of poo-pooers 10 years ago. I don't think they're poo-pooing things too much anymore. Are they? No, no. So this is part 2 of the cryptocurrency Bitcoin history. And this next part of the history is so vital. You heard the last part. I'm not going to go over part 1 because it's recorded and you could listen to it. But part 2, I said, was going to start with 2 huge changes that happened in 2001 and 2008 that set the stage for the crypto world up to 2016 and a half. Okay. So this is going to take you up to crypto 2016, 2017, actually 2017 and a half. And then my next subject is going to be what is next. Okay. And once again, I'm going to give you information that you need to use to your advantage. So what was the event that happened in 2001? I'm not talking about 9/11 here. Now, 9/11 was obviously one of the excuses for the development or the signing of the Patriot Act. But the Patriot Act had a gigantic, it had a gigantic effect on a significant portion of the population, not just because of the fact that there was surveillance involved with it. It affected certain groups in a very interesting way. And I'm going to talk about the surveillance, the Patriot Act, because it had a significant impact on why Bitcoin started. And you should understand that with the Patriot Act, the U.S. government was allowed to do certain things. And they used the 9/11 incident or attack to justify the mass surveillance of the entire world. Okay. Now, when you're thinking about the Patriot Act, you got to think about one of the key things that happened. And what happened is the NSA was given virtually carte blanche to build a massive domestic and international surveillance platform. All right. And when I say platform, I'm saying that the budget for the build out of the surveillance equipment necessary to do what's called a full look worldwide, we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 to $40 billion annually. Okay. And part of the whole process of setting up worldwide surveillance is that the NSA had to place all sorts of servers and listening systems throughout the world, and they had to then develop what are called, I'm going to use a term here that's pretty sophisticated. They had to do what are called zero-day exploits. And a zero-day exploit means what it means. It means they had software that could literally go in to a computer platform and take it over without the person owning the platform having any knowledge or foreknowledge to do anything about it. They had 0 days to be able to somehow defend against these exploits. And these exploits were used on Apple, IBM. They were used on hardware. They were used on software. They even have a unit within the NSA that's called the Tailored Access Group. Tailored Access is their SEAL Team 6 of the NSA. And I mean, they got to the point where they would hijack major servers that were en route to be installed at different countries, different corporations. and they would stick in these hardware exploits and their software exploits so they could start monitoring. Okay, now I know you're probably going, well, what does this have to do with cryptocurrency? Well, it has a lot to do with cryptocurrency, and I'm getting there. So just deal with it. So the fellow you're looking at right now is a fellow named Bill Binney, and Bill Binney was the guy who essentially, while working at NSA in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, developed a type of tracking system that could track what's called metadata. He tried to figure out, I want to try to find out what's going to happen with different countries like Russia or Soviet Union. He wanted to find out what their intentions were without eavesdropping on what their communications said. So what he did is he started developing something that could track metadata. And metadata is simply data about the data. So if you have an email, Bill Binney wasn't interested in what was in the email. He just wanted to know who the email was sent from, who received it, how long were they on it. Same thing with telephone calls, same thing with text messages. He simply wanted to find out. He wanted to find out how long the calls were, who they go to, without actually surveilling what was inside the content. And that, believe it or not, that concept of metadata was taken out to the point where he could develop and find out who was connected to who was connected to who. And some would say that his development of what is called social networks is what ultimately helped develop Facebook. Okay, so Bill Binney was the guy who developed social network monitoring and social networks, and that's what that cat did. And the thing with Bill Binney is he also liked to follow the law. So Bill Binney had developed a way called Thin Thread, that's THIN, thread, Thin Thread, where he could literally find a potential real terrorist and pull the thread and see who is connected to that terrorist. If any Americans came up, his Thin Thread system would automatically encrypt the American. Now, for you guys who are not Americans, it's U.S. citizens, I mean, you're probably going, well, okay, it didn't help me any. But at least what Bill Binney was trying to do is make sure that at no point did the NSA surveil people in the United States or U.S. citizens that were overseas. So he developed Thin Thread. And when 9/11 happened, Bill Binney and his small group were able to understand and could have tracked down who exactly was responsible for 9/11, at least at the kind of the soldier level, the 19 guys who actually took down the plane. So the problem here is that Bill Binney's platform would cost a very small amount of money, a very small amount of money to set it up worldwide. It's called Thin Thread. In fact, it would only cost, and I know this may sound like a lot, but it would only cost under $1 billion worldwide. But unfortunately, certain people at the NSA and at the US government wanted to do a lot more what you would call full look surveillance. So they said, thanks, Bill, but no thanks. We're going to take your Thin Thread system, but we're going to take out the encryption part so we can use your Thin Thread and still look at Americans. And that's why Bill Binney left in 2001 and became one of the most storied whistleblowers there ever was. You may or may not have heard of him, but a fellow named Snowden, Bill Binney was a hero of his. And some of you may think Snowden's a hero, some of you may not. I think most people think he's a hero. But my whole point here is that the surveillance state really started getting rather large by 2002, 2003, 2004. And then by 2005, the story started breaking that there was not mass surveillance, but the story broke by the New York Times and the Washington Post that that U.S. citizens, thousands, were being surveilled without a warrant. And at that point, that was big news. Thousands of people were being surveilled. And this was really beginning to bother a large group of libertarians, a very large group of libertarians. And a lot of libertarians happen to be in the hacking world, or the computer operations world, or the network operators world. So essentially, you had a whole group of folks, techies, that were just completely and totally, freaked out by what was happening with this whole surveillance state world. Okay, and that is when things started to move in the direction of, well, how can we solve this? How can we communicate back and forth without having surveillance? How can we do business back and forth without having our transactions monitored? How can this happen? So that was the first big event that started the path towards Bitcoin. The second major event was, of course, the financial crisis. Now, we could go on and on about the reasons for the financial crisis, from giving away home loans to folks that shouldn't have them or shouldn't ever get them. There's a whole group of there's information about how new financial products were developed by the major Wall Street investment banks that allowed people to bet on people who were people who were betting on financial products. I mean, literally, there's a whole series of financial products that were little more than betting on things to happen. They weren't based on any type of underlying asset. So you had a number of factors that created the global financial crisis. But what happened then is these libertarians who were just terrified, libertarians and people who were very concerned about central governments. Now they were doubly concerned about things. They were concerned about, oh my gosh, these central banks, they're going to kill us. So that is what started Satoshi Nakamoto and others developing a currency that would be anonymous and that was decentralized. Okay? So there's these two factors that the developers of Bitcoin had in their mind. A, they didn't like having surveillance happening, and they didn't like having central banks blow up the world economy. I mean, they just didn't like that. So what was their solution to this? Well, develop effectively a currency that was encrypted and could be utilized by people in an anonymous fashion. Because one of the elements of thin thread, remember, it's metadata. Thin thread and the surveillance systems operate on metadata. And in fact, now they also operate on looking at the messages too, but that's a whole nother story. But the main point is when you think about a transaction, or how would you go about surveilling someone? Well, you take a look at their email, you take a look at their phone calls, but also, most importantly, is you take a look at what they're buying, who they're buying it from, how much they're paying. And that tells you a tremendous amount of information about a person. When do they go to the bank? When do they pull out money? When do they go to XYZ store? What are they buying? So that's metadata. So the concept of Bitcoin and using the blockchain was to have a currency that could be used anonymously. And on top of that, you'd have a currency that was decentralized, that wasn't going to be controlled by, 12 major central banks, starting with the Federal Reserve. So those are the two things that pushed Satoshi Nakamoto towards the birth of Bitcoin. And that's if you think about those factors, that a currency that is encrypted and is anonymous and doesn't involve central banking, that literally brings transactions to the people, now you can begin to understand, well, where is Bitcoin going? Where are cryptocurrencies going? And then from that, you can start understanding, well, are there better solutions than Bitcoin? Are there better solutions than the blockchain? And that brings me to our next subject. So, part 3 of where did Bitcoin go is next week. But this history lesson on Bitcoin and why it started and what it tried to address, and that's, by the way, why I talked about last week. I was giving you a bit of a history lesson on encryption, crypto, so you can understand where did this world come from of being able to basically safeguard communications. And that's essentially the purpose of one of the core purposes of Bitcoin was to have an anonymous currency that allowed people to not, have every single thing they did ever tracked. Now, there's issues with that now, but that was what certainly Nakamoto was thinking about. Now, that takes me into right now. I'm sure everybody has been seeing what's been happening with cryptocurrencies, okay, and pricing. And it's important to just remind you of two things. You've seen Bitcoin drop to about 8,000, 9,000 bucks. You've seen other coins drop. Now they're starting to come back up. Some people are starting to, and then we're going to get into what type of coins you should look for. But you have to understand that you are very early in this. And if you understand why the price of Bitcoin dropped, you have to look at what I call the insiders and the outsiders of the old financial world. Now, the insiders of the old financial world are the guys that ran the big investment bank, like Goldman Sachs, like Lehman Brothers, like Credit Suisse. In the pre-Bitcoin world, you had the insiders were the guys that ran the banks and ran the financial institutions. And the outsiders were everybody else. We were the outsiders. We were the pawns in the game. But Bitcoin has completely reversed that cycle. And cryptocurrencies have completely reversed that cycle. And these old insiders are now the outsiders. And they're trying to figure out how they can get a control of this thing. That's what's happening right now. Okay? Now, I want to talk about Goldman Sachs because it was big news 3 months ago that Goldman Sachs was opening up a trading desk. That means Goldman Sachs was going to, in June or July, they are going to start trading cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin. Now, the old method of the old pre-Bitcoin financial players was asset manipulation. That's how they made their money. They would accumulate slowly but surely, like gold, for instance. And Bruce Wiseman talks about this in his incredible newsletters. They would accumulate a particular asset. It could be gold, it could be silver, it could be US dollars, whatever it is. And over about a 2-year period of time, they would accumulate as much as possible quietly. And then they would cause a rise. Maybe, for instance, they would accumulate oil futures, right? And everything is nice and good in the world, and everything is peaceful. And then all of a sudden, you have this explosion in the Twin Towers, and all of a sudden, you have a war that's in Afghanistan, you have a war in Iraq, and all of a sudden, it's perceived that there's going to be scarcity of oil. That's what happens. Then all of a sudden you have the oil price goes up. And all of a sudden these guys who have accumulated all these oil futures over time suddenly are making a killing. So they watch the price go up, 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 and then all of a sudden they sell. They sell it all fast, and they're kind of piggy, so they want to make more money. All right, they want to make more money, and so they crash that commodity with something else. Maybe all of a sudden there's something called fracking, and all of a sudden there's a huge amount of oil that's available, and all of a sudden the markets start dropping, and the price of oil crashes and goes down to $30 or $33 a barrel of oil. Okay? Then what happens? The pre-Bitcoin financial leaders start accumulating oil futures again. Well, they're doing the same thing now with cryptocurrencies. Okay? Goldman Sachs decides that they're going 3 months ago, they're going to start their own trading desk in June or July. Well, with Bitcoin at $20,000, it's going to be hard for Goldman Sachs to make a lot of money trading, isn't it? So what do? Well, Goldman Sachs, along with several, other investment groups, start talking down cryptocurrencies. I mean, here's an article that just came out with Goldman Sachs saying, cryptocurrencies will go to zero. But stronger digital currencies may still emerge. Now, when you say stronger cryptocurrencies, well, what do you think those are? Well, those are the cryptocurrencies that these guys have slowly but surely accumulated. Do you understand? Does that make sense, everybody? You get the idea? You get the game here? But here's the problem with all this, and this is why I keep on talking about these two things: the wallets and the S-curve. Because there's going to be a point where there's so much buying of crypto and there's so many new people are coming in that demand is going to basically take over. The demand of the use of the coin is going to take over, that over many years, the old guard won't be able to manipulate the currency. Does that make sense, everybody? Do you understand? Right now, you still have a small group, really, of people who are involved with the currency. You have 22 million wallets. You have 7 billion people on the planet. But as you see that growth rate go up, the growth rate, you see it's growing fast, there's going to be a point when there are so many people that are utilizing the currency that the currencies will be unstoppable. So the time to get into cryptocurrencies is now more than ever. Don't let these speculators scare you by their tactics. This article you're seeing here is a tactic. Okay, that's a tactic. It's the tactic of getting you guys to get scared and to run out and drop the price. And meanwhile, while you're selling your coins like crazy, who's buying those coins? Well, it's the Goldman Sachses of the world are buying the coins. And at the right time, they'll start talking up the market, and all of a sudden the price starts going back up. And because the price starts going back up, Goldman Sachs and all their buddies are going to be trading like crazy, making a killing. What I'm telling you now is I believe, and many of us firmly believe, that this is a limited window of ups and downs as the wallets keep on increasing. These wallets are going to increase and increase and increase and increase. And the adoption is going to move into the early adopter stage. And once it's in that stage, you have 50, 60, 70, 100, 200 million people buying and selling currencies. It's over. Because then you're talking about tens and tens of trillions of dollars trading, every month. Because right now you're up 20 billion a day. So my major message to you is you need to start finding currencies, particularly looking for currencies that are low cost. Okay? I want you to start going, I want you all to write this down. This site is called Steam It. It's coming up in a second here. It should come up. Steam It. Let's see if it's coming up. Make sure. Looks like you all, there we go. Steam It. Steam It is probably the world's best site for news regarding cryptocurrencies. It's tens of thousands of bloggers who are on top of things. Okay, I mean on top of things. And they have all sorts of subject matter. And this is where you can start learning about different cryptocurrencies that are coming along the bend and what I call alternative currencies that are using anti-counterfeiting measures. See, once again, blockchain is useful, but it's got some real problems. Many people are now looking for secondary technologies that are anti-counterfeiting, that really only care whether that coin is real or not. And that's where CloudCoin is a real leader in this field. You got some others coming in there too. CloudCoin's anti-counterfeiting. And right now, the thing you should be looking for are currencies that solve a problem, that are in pre-launch or pre-ICO. If you could get your hands on currencies that are cool, where you could get your hands on those currencies under $1, under 50 cents. If you get cool currencies under 25 cents that you see have good management teams that have that solve a problem, where the currency solves a problem, you got to grab. There's where you want to start your own accumulation, because with hundreds of millions of more users of cryptocurrencies coming on in the next 12 months, all of these currencies, the ones that are legit, are going to start moving up again. It's all going to start moving up. So one of the places you should go to learn about new currencies under $1, under 50 cent, pre-launch, pre-ISO currencies is Steemit, STEEMIT.com. That's very important for you to do. It's also important for you to know the basics of, how do you go about buying the currencies, getting your wallets, you converting your new currencies into currencies like Bitcoin, like Ether, so you could quickly transfer wealth. I mean, you could take new tokens, use them to convert into Bitcoin, into Ether, into Bitcoin Cash, and then take that money out into the banking system by selling your Bitcoin Ether and Bitcoin Cash for fiat money or US dollars. So your flow is going to be find brand new currencies, acquire those currencies. Don't put a huge fortune into it. Put $500 here, $250 there, $1,000 here into these small, newer currencies that solve a problem, that are under $1, that are pre-ICO, that are pre-launch, that are currencies that yet to have made the hyperdrive jump onto exchanges too. So I'm going to be doing a whole series of articles on specific currencies that if you're involved with the Deer Crash training, you're going to have access to those articles in the next 2 weeks. We're going to be identifying specific under dollar currencies, pre-launch currencies, pre-ICO currencies. But you don't have to be in Deer to get access to the information. You could go to Steam it yourself or do your own learning. So I think that's very, very important for you to understand where things are going. A lot of news is out there. It's trying to freak you out and get you selling coins and selling off, because a lot of that news is being caused by people like Goldman Sachs. So you don't want to be scared out of the market, but you also want to be smarter about your choices. You want to look for those lower cost currencies, under $1, under 50 cents, under 25 cents. You want to accumulate some of those. You want to get your hands on some of those. as long as those currencies solve a problem. Okay? Now, for my last small segment, this may seem off base, but it really isn't, because at the end of this little 7 more minutes, you all are going to have the opportunity of being able to get your hands on some additional cloud coins, but do it in a way that you help a great organization and you get a tremendous tax write-off. So believe it or not, I'm about to talk to you about something that's near and dear to my heart. But at the end of this, you can end up getting your hands on a lot of cloud coins at great prices, but also be able to write off, do a write-off. So many of you may or may not know that one of the things that I do is I'm involved with a school which is here in the Clearwater area. It's Clearwater Academy, and I'm involved. My kids went to the school, and my two of my boys were involved with the football team there, and I'm actually a coach of the football team. And Clearwater Academy is well known because it uses technology that's licensed to them by Applied Scholastics. And that's why I like them so much. Well, we are doing something that is blowing people away, and it's getting recognition for applied scholastics like never before. We have a football team that is now nationally recognized. Okay. And when I say nationally recognized, we have universities that are finding out about our football players who are coming from all over the world. Why? Because we're becoming nationally recognized, and we have a study technology that is employed by and licensed from Applied Scholastics that allows us to help students learn very, very, very fast. So you have to understand that people in the big time football world, well, players, is they want to go to universities like Notre Dame and Penn State and Ohio State and Pittsburgh and Oregon. And I'm about to tell you something that's going to blow you away. All of these major universities have come to Clearwater Academy in the last few weeks. Why? Because we have all these incredible football players who happen to be really, really smart, and they just can't figure out why. Now they're starting to figure out why. When I say universities, let me tell you some of the universities that have been at Clearwater Academy just in the last 2 to 3 weeks. Notre Dame, Penn State, Ohio State, Louisville, UCLA, Oregon, Michigan State, Pittsburgh, Syracuse. I could go on and on. Why are they coming? Why are they coming to this little school? Because we have these really great players who really learn fast and are smart, and they can actually make grades, so they can actually play. And I want to give you a little inside track. When these college coaches of these major universities, they have done a tremendous amount of research about the players and about the school. And they do a lot of research, and they find out all about, well, what is the school doing that these players are so smart? Because they really want to recruit some of our players. Okay, they really want to do that bad. So they learn everything there is to know about the school. And all of a sudden they start reading about applied scholastics. This is one of the famous coaches. This is this is the Pittsburgh coach that came, and yesterday, national news, one of our players from Italy, a defensive end, signed with Pittsburgh. And that news is all over Pittsburgh. And all these people from Pittsburgh are now going, well, what the heck is this Clearwater Academy? Oh, wow. What's this thing they do, this applied scholastics? Well, this is happening over and over and over again now. You have major universities that are, in order to be successful in recruiting one of our players, they learn all about the school, and they learn all about the curriculum, and they find out, oh, wow, these kids aren't on drugs. Well, why is that? Now, next year, we are going into hyperdrive. We're bringing in something on the order of 15 to 20 major players from all over the world, some of which are NFL prospects. And we'll have hundreds of schools now trying to find out how are these players, why are they so good? Why do they learn so fast? I mean, that coach right there was shocked when he found out that the student he wanted excuse me, wanted to know about the anti-drug, wanted to make sure that Pittsburgh had an anti-drug policy. What were they doing to make sure the players went on drugs? So the coach was shocked that we were even asking about that. And of course, their program is very much anti-drug. And they were shocked when they found out this school has like no drug problem. I can't tell you how significant this is. When you have major coaches like Lou Saban from Alabama finding out about us, or the coach from Ohio State finding out about us, finding out about this. What is this stuff? What are you guys doing? How do you tutor these guys? How do you make sure they have a 3.7 GPA so they're not going to be ineligible to play football at our school? They're finding out. Now, here's where you guys can participate. We have 20 of these players coming, and they need help with finding room and board, because we give them, we have Florida is literally Florida State, the state of Florida is giving us the scholarship money to give these kids so they don't have to pay. So a lot of these kids who can't afford to pay private school scholarships, the state of Florida is paying for it. That's how good we are now. So we have players that are coming. They don't have to pay their scholarship at all. They don't have to pay the private tuitions, but they still have to cover their room and board. And some of these players, as great as they are, don't have families that can handle it. So this is what I'm doing. My wife and I are putting up a certain amount of our cloud coins. We feel so strongly about this. And we need to raise a little bit of money, not a whole lot, a little bit, to help these kids. And if people come in and they donate a certain amount of money, which is tax deductible, completely tax deductible, we are going to provide you a significant number of coins. So at the end of the day, believe it or not, the offer that we had that we don't do anymore 2 to 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago, what I'm doing now is better than that. The sheer amount of coins people are getting per their donation. Donations are made straight to the school. and my wife, we're taking a portion of our coins and giving them as a gift, no cost, to people who are kind enough to donate. And then your donation is fully tax deductible. So when I say this is a better opportunity than what we had before, it's because we want to really, really have an impact. And this school with Applied Scholastics has a huge impact. I can't tell you how big. So it's limited. It's not a whole lot of money we're trying to raise, but it will help these 20 kids. And if you're interested, just email me at bob@digitalcurrencygrowth.com and just put on there football on the subject line. And I'll send you a quick one sheet that'll explain our donation levels and how many cloud coins I would provide you as a gift based on how much you donate. And that's fully tax deductible donation, by the way. And I tell you what, if any of you, and I know some of you here are very familiar with Applied Scholastics and the technology there, this is a huge deal. This is a huge deal when you have all these, next year with 20 different students that are going to be big time football players. We're going to have probably a couple hundred schools. The biggest schools in the country are going to be looking and learning about Clearwater Academy and how they're taking these players and teaching them so well, and what is the tutoring system we use. It's just amazing. So if you want to participate, and if, once again, my wife and I are going to provide the coins to make this happen. I mean, we're as excited as everybody about what we're doing with all our currencies, but frankly, we need to step up. We're stepping up to make sure that this is possible, so we can continue what we're doing with Clearwater Academy. So once again, email me at bob@digitalcurrencygrowth.com. Put the subject line football, and I'll be happy to send you that little one sheet so you can learn what we're doing. Anybody here who's familiar with applied scholastics know how important this is. I hope you participate. So I hope you enjoyed our event. Now let's go ahead and do our drawing. Here we go. I got to put random. Here's random.org. Remember this? Random.org. We now have 230 people have attended. That breaks the record again. So we've broken the record. So let's see who wins the 10,000 coins. Here we go. 5. I'm going to hit the little generate button. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, number 2. Oh my gosh, 200. The last person that came in won the deal. Holy mackerel, 230. Number 230 is the one who won. Wow. Okay, so there we go. I want to thank you for attending our event. Listen, once again, I hope you're going to be here for part 3 of the history of Bitcoin. I hope you like what our topics were tonight. Once again, if you're a Dear member, we are going to be putting articles up regarding specific currencies under our coin alert. And if you want to get involved with this program to get tremendous additional exposure for applied scholastics, I will be providing you as a gift some very significant number of coins, and anything you do will be a full 100% write-off. Thank you very much. That's bob@digitalcurrencygrowth.com. So email me. Thank you.